Jon, first question, please, is what is the hygiene hypothesis?
Well, the hygiene hypothesis came up during the 90s, and it's based on an observation that children with older siblings tend to have less allergies. And David Strachan, who wrote a paper on this, he wasn't the first to observe it, but he was the first to frame it in that context and say, well, it's probably the unhygienic contact with older siblings that stimulates your immune system and helps you to prevent allergies.
And how can each individual try to be exposed to the correct environment?
Well, that's a different question. It's difficult because we don't quite know what the correct environment is. If you think about your life or the life of your family, we're exposed to very, very many environments, and people tend to think that it's not good if you're too clean. So if you shower too often or use a lot of antimicrobial products. But actually the evidence that this is linked to allergy is pretty slim. What we observe is more or less the opposite, that if you have contact to children early in life, that is older siblings or during daycare, that is beneficial. Or if you've got contact to very, I wouldn't say dirty, but diverse settings like early farming exposures, if you've got contact to cow stables or farm settings where there's a lot of bioactivity, that is obviously environments that are helpful. So children who grow up in these environments, they tend to have less allergy. That's why we went from the hygiene hypothesis more to a biodiversity hypothesis. Now, back to your question, what can each individual do? You can't really move to a farm and live there all your life because most of us live in an urban setting. So the question really is, how can we, make our households in urban settings better, more stimulating for our immune system? And that is something that we're still working on.
And can the effects of being too clean during childhood be reversed or ameliorated?
Well, that is also a good question. Can we reverse effects? Pediatricians tend to think that there's a window of opportunity to train the immune system in early life, probably even during pregnancy and in the first year of life or first 3 years of life. That is probably true. But I tend to think that the immune system can be trained later on as well. So yes, effects can somewhat be reversed. If you, as an adult or as an elderly person, still try to train the immune system and expose yourself to more dirty or diverse environments, that could actually also be helpful.
And is there something what we can do individually in our households?
Well, probably avoid being too clean, but then again, there's also hazards in our households, right? There's bacteria that make us sick, or there's toxicants or other products that are not good for our health. So it has to be the right mix of environments, and we're not quite sure what they are yet.
What would be the necessary legislation in Europe?
Legislation is also a difficult issue because, as I said, we're not quite sure which environmental factors we should protect or expose to. And so doing something for the whole population is probably, a critical idea. If you think about pesticides or other toxicants that are used to kill bacteria or smaller organisms, that certainly is something that requires legislation and where we need to think about which of them should we use in what dose. But that pertains more to agriculture than your personal household.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.